room as they come in?
Sure.
Thank you. Great. Well, thanks everyone for being here. This is the webinar for the Farm to School and Early Childhood Vision Grant. My name is Gina Clitheroe. I'm with the Vermont Agency of Agriculture. And I'm here with Diana Ferguson, also from the Agency of Ag. And yeah, we're going to offer a brief intro to this grant opportunity and maybe answer some of your questions. And then we will do a little tutorial. And so on tutorial on how to submit an application. So let me just click through here. So we'll provide a little agenda as to what we're going to cover today, as a reminder to keep yourself muted when you're not speaking. And for the purpose of specifically for the recording, this session is going to be recorded. Feel free to raise your hand if a question comes up. There's a little raise hand icon there on your toolbar. You should also see a little chat icon, and feel free to type any questions you have into the chat. Whenever they arise, you don't have to wait till the end to put a question into the chat. We'll address it when we can. So just wanted to name that. And that's all that I have for this time. I think we can just kind of jump in if that feels okay. All right. So our agenda for our time today is we're going to talk about the grant, an overview of the grant program, talk a little bit about program history, and then go into the details of this opportunity, eligibility criteria, match requirements, the nitty-gritty stuff, some of the required documentation. And then Diana Ferguson is going to offer us how to submit an application to WebGrants quick demonstration. And then we'll open it up for questions at the end. But as I said before, if any questions do come up as we're working through, don't hesitate to drop them in the chat. It's not disruptive. It's going to be helpful. We can either answer them in the moment or save them to the end, depending on time. Any questions about the process before we get started? So here is an overview, kind of like the fast facts about this funding opportunity. The Vision Grant is meant to support innovative projects that engage youth in addressing contemporary problems such as climate change, food insecurity, food sovereignty, health disparities, COVID-19, and racial injustice through farm to school and early childhood activities. Projects must center Vermont youth in their scope and promote awareness of and engagement with issues related to agriculture, nutrition, community, and health. Strong proposals will be scalable and replicable and prioritize youth leadership and will demonstrate a significant impact on Vermont youth. $150,000 is available for this funding opportunity, and the minimum award is $5,000 and the maximum award is $50,000. The deadline to apply is Monday, April 24th at noon. I just want to flag that that's at noon and not at midnight that night. Great. Welcome, folks who are joining us. This session is recorded. Just want to flag that, but appreciate you all being here. And I did just want to offer a brief history of the program and note that this is a new grant program, fairly new. It was started in 2021. And the intention is to be able to support these innovative and maybe outside the box projects that can be scaled and replicated. There are two other grant programs that the Agency of Agriculture offers for farm to school and early childhood. So the first is the Farm to School and Early Childhood Grants Program, which is a capacity building grant. It's a package grant with funding and technical assistance. That one opens up each fall, and that application process is already closed for this year. And then we have a community supported agriculture grant opportunity. That application is currently open and accepting applications, and there's more information available on our website about that. And then there's this grant program, the Vision Grant Opportunity, which is also open right now. And the idea with this Vision Grant is it's serving a unique need, supporting these innovative outside the box solutions. And the history of the grant program is that there have been two grants supported so far, one each year. So in 2021, there was one grant awarded to the South Hero Land Trust. And then in 2022, there was one grant awarded to Fairfield Community Center Association for $16,000. But this year, because of an increase in the budget for this grant program through the Vermont State Legislature, up from around $200,000 in 2021, in 2022, now to around $500,000 in 2023. This is one of the grant programs that's budget has increased significantly. So last year we only had $16,000 to award. We now have $150,000 to award. So we're going to be supporting at least 3 grants with this funding, and likely many more. And I just wanted to give some context about what these vision grants are doing right now on the ground. These are multi-year projects, so both of those grants, the 2021 grant and the 2022 grant, are underway. But I just wanted to give this as like a snapshot of what some other folks have done. This is not by any means like what we would expect all applicants to do, or this is just an example of what has been supported so far to offer some context, because it is a pretty broad category of projects that can be supported. So I wanted to give something tangible to look at as an example. So the 2021 Vision Grantee, South Hero Land Trust, the focus of this project is on the integration of anti-racist education with farm to school and nature-based programs at Folsom Education and Community Center, using storytelling, art, music, agriculture, food, and land stewardship. Students and teachers are engaging with the stories and experiences of Black, Indigenous, and people of color in Vermont. The partner with the South Hero Land Trust is an educational institution. It's the Folsom Education and Community Center. And that grant is underway, but will be wrapping up at the end of June. The 2022 Vision Grantee is Fairfield Community Center Association. And this project aims to build an equitable food systems to provide Fairfield students, farm workers, and low-income households a chance to learn together. This will be done through education, hands-on modeling, access to garden sites, and Fairfield School outdoor classrooms, high tunnel, and engagement with the local library and participation in community harvest and celebration. So there are the key partners engaged with the Community Center Association on this project are the Fairfield School and the Bent Northrop Memorial Library. But there are also other organizations involved in supporting the project, including UVM Extension's Bridges to Health program, and the Fairfield Historical Society. This project is still underway. They're going to be submitting their first annual report at the end of June, but we have had a site visit with them to understand what's going on with this project, and there's a lot of exciting work happening this spring, engaging with the Huertas project, which is a project to support farm workers, migrant farm workers, to have kitchen gardens throughout the state to support food sovereignty. And this project will end May 2024. So that's kind of the overview, some context as to some of the projects that have been supported by this grant program in the past. Now we're going to get into the details of the grant program. So the eligibility criteria for this grant: eligible applicants are schools and school districts, registered and or licensed early childcare providers, licensed after-school programs, and nonprofits and community organizations. And the requirement is that any nonprofits or community organizations have to demonstrate partnership with another organization within the farm to school and early childhood network to really leverage that scalable, replicable change. Some projects that are ineligible are those that are primarily designed to benefit an organization, business, or industry sector. And as I said in the beginning, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this, more folks joined on. If you have any questions that come up, feel free to drop them in the chat or write them down and save them till the end. It's up to you, but just know that the chat is open and we'll address them either in the moment or at the end during the Q&A section. So the components of the Vision Grant application, there's an applicant information section in which folks will submit their information about their organization and the organization that they are partnering with. Whether that is, if it's a school, there's some information there about like how many students are in the school. And if it's another nonprofit, information about what nonprofit that is. And letters of support are uploaded there. Then there's the next section is about the demonstration of need for the project. Then there's project description, leaders and partners, and those are individuals within the project. And there's opportunity to optionally upload resumes for project leaders. And then the budget and a plan for evaluation. How will you know that your project is successful, and to offer some ideas for how you would measure success if your project was funded. So within the application structure, all of the required documentation is listed here. I tried to pull it out. So in addition to going in and entering all the fields that are required for the application, here's some stuff that you'll also need to either upload or have the option to upload. And then to note, once you submit your application, a review committee will be reviewing all the applications. If your application is accepted, we will notify you of that, and then we'll need to collect some additional documentation before we can actually execute a grant award. So just wanted to flag all of that up front. So the required attachments to your application include a letter of support from each organization leadership who's a project partner. That's going to be just in that first section on applicant information. So for example, the South Hero Land Trust was a grantee the first year. In their application, they put the Folsom Education Center as their project partner, indicated information about how many students there are in that school, what grades are being served. If a nonprofit partner was applying and they are working in partnership with a school in that same context, they do the same thing this time around. If there's a nonprofit partner who's partnering with another nonprofit or another organization and not a school, you won't be required to add information in that table about how many students are served, but a letter of support is required from all project partners. And so just wanted to name that. Letters of support are required to demonstrate that organizational leadership commitment from the partner organization. And then all applications will also be required to upload this good standing certificate. It's a water quality requirement. It's fairly straightforward. It's an agreement that the Agency of Agriculture has with the Agency of Natural Resources to ensure that the Agency of Ag isn't funding any farms that might be in any water quality issues, but all grantees need to submit this, not just farms. And it's just a simple attestation. So within the application, you'll click the link to download the form, fill it out. It needs to be signed by the fiscal agent that's submitting the application, and then upload that signed document as an attestation that your organization's in compliance with water quality regulations. There's options to upload additional attachments. These are not required attachments, but can be supporting material for your application that could be considered by the review committee. These are testimonials or other supporting documentation to show the qualitative evidence that there is a problem that your application is seeking to solve. And also quantitative evidence that demonstrates the problem and need at hand, which could be research reports or case studies. And then there's also space, like I mentioned earlier, to upload resumes for individual project team members. Those are all optional attachments, but could be helpful context as reviewers consider how impactful is this project going to be, and is this team qualified to manage this project. And then upon award notification, this is standard for all grants that come out of the Agency of Agriculture. The agency will need to receive a certificate. Actually, not just the Agency of Agriculture, this is statewide. State grants, any state grants will require the same. A certificate of insurance listing the Agency of Agriculture as an additional insured, and also a current IRS Form W-9, which if you are a current grantee or have received a grant within the past year, we're probably all set on that, but we'll reach out to you individually if your grant is funded. If there are any questions that come up about grant documentation, feel free to drop them in the chat or hold on to them and we'll get to them at the end. I did also just want to flag that there is a matching fund requirement for this grant opportunity. The award range, again, from that first slide is $5,000 to $50,000. So for example, if you are requesting a $20,000 grant, $5,000 will need to be contributed by your organization for that application, or your organization or one of the partner organizations. That can be cash or in kind. So when you indicate that in the application, you'll have an opportunity to, if you use in-kind match to meet this requirement, you'll be asked to kind of describe how you've estimated the value of the match in, staff time or other resources that your organization is going to contribute to the successful implementation of the project. And yeah, so it can be cash or in kind or combination of both. And it's possible that cash match might be viewed more favorably, but the requirement is not that you need to have cash match. This is the overall grant timeline payment schedule for this opportunity. There are 2 reports that are going to be due throughout the grant. One is after the first year of the project, so that'll be in May 2024, and the final report will be due in May 2025. And the first grant payment will be released upon grant signature. So as soon as you've submitted, you're notified of the award, you submit your required documentation, which is the W-9 and the certificate of insurance, and then we send you the grant agreement paperwork, you review it, you ask any questions. Once that's all signed and done, then you're able to get into WebGrants and submit your first claim for payment. And your first claim for payment will be 45% of what the award is. Your second claim for payment will release the second 45%, and then the final 10% of the award will be released after you've submitted your final report, and that's been reviewed and approved by the program manager. So we are going to transition here now into the WebGrants tutorial, but before I pass it over to Diana to offer that, just want to highlight some of the resources that are available to you as you work through your application. So the grant webpage, which I'm sure most of you have already visited at this point, has the request for applications, which has all the details about this opportunity, all those details that we just reviewed in the slide and more, and also has the full list of application questions that you'll see when you get into the grant management system to actually submit your application. So sometimes people like to kind of work outside the grant management system to maybe collaborate with partners if only one person has access. So the request for applications is a great place to see what am I going to be asked in the application. You'll also find the link to the application portal and web grants, and you'll find the application guide. And Diana's going to show you where to identify all those resources. You'll also find this webinar recording in case it's useful for future reference. And yeah, and now I'm going to pass it over to Diana to talk about how to submit an application to web grants.
Thanks so much, Gina. Hi, everybody. I'm Diana Ferguson. I'm Grants Management Specialist with the agency. Really glad all of you could join us today. And just as a disclaimer, I'm home with a couple of sick children, so there may be some background noise. Apologies in advance. So as Gina said, I'm going to take you through the web grants process for submitting an application for the Vision Grant. Many of you are familiar with the system already, especially if you've submitted an application previously for this or a different funding opportunity through our agency. So something to know about web grants, it is the system that we use for grants management all the way from the very beginning of the application process through grant management, claim submission, and reporting. So if you're chosen as a grantee, it'll be great that you've already gotten your feet wet with the application process to get familiar with how to navigate through the system. It is something, and I'm just going to pull up my screen here. It is something that has a little bit of a learning curve, so we'd recommend if you're intending to apply, and especially if you have not used the system before, to go ahead and register right away. It can take a day or two for us to approve the registration, and then go ahead and log in and familiarize yourself with the layout so that you have as much time as you need when it comes to actually completing and submitting your application. So the link agriculturegrants.vermont.gov takes you to the login page for web grants. You can see there's a yellow registration button here at the bottom. If you are new and you don't have an account yet, then do that as your first step. And then you'll get an automated message with your password after your registration has been approved. We do recommend that if you're planning to apply and collaborate on the application with multiple people, that you each create your own account. So you could, each of you do that, and then we can connect you to the same application in the system. So that's helpful to us, so we know if somebody has a question, who to reach out to. So you're not sharing login information, and we're just aware of everybody that's involved. So after you have your username and password, you see here there's forgot user ID and password links. If you ever need those, you can go ahead and click the green button to sign in after you've entered your information. And for those of you that are familiar with the system, thanks for hanging out. This is total review for you. But for other folks, this is what the home page or the dashboard looks like after you log into Web Grants. Your name will be up here on the left, and we're using a test account. So it's all kind of in Latin and other things, but the basis is the same. That on the left here, you'll have these gray navigation buttons. So those will be your primary way to get around. The first thing that you'll do as an applicant is click on Funding Opportunities on the left, which is right under the dashboard option. And that will take you to a list of active funding opportunities that are currently accepting applications from our agency. And so what you will do is find Farm to School Vision Grant, which is buried here in the middle, can click anywhere in this row to open the funding opportunity. And unless someone else has already started an application for your organization, you won't have anything in this list, but you will have this nice overview of the Vision Grant. The RFA is attached, and the website, a couple of the website links that Gina already mentioned in terms of the Vision Grant webpage and the application guide for how to walk you through this process. So as a new applicant, you'll click this green Start New Application button towards the top right. And this will take you to essentially a 3-step application wizard process, which basically builds the backbone of the application for you in the system. So the first thing you're going to do is give your application a project title. And you're going to make sure that you are the person selected here as the primary contact, and that is correct. If you have multiple people in your organization and you are in a supporting role, but somebody else should be the primary contact, then you would just select whoever that is. And then it's purposeful that these other two items don't have boxes yet, so you'll go ahead and click Save Form Information. And remember that this is a 3-step process, so you'll kind of click the Save Form button multiple times before you actually get into the application itself. So now your project title has been entered. It gives you a chance to edit it if you've already changed your mind. But the next important step is making sure that your organization is correctly selected. So if you happen to work for or volunteer for multiple organizations, make sure the one you're applying on behalf of is selected. And then you'll click Save Form Information again at the right. So now the system has saved the primary contact and organization, and here's your opportunity to add additional applicants. So if you have someone who will be creating content along with you as part of the application process and is registered and connected to your same organization in Web Grants, they will appear here if you click in this box next to additional applicants, and so you can select their name. If that doesn't happen and someone has registered and they don't appear in this list, then just send me an email and I can get them manually connected to your application. Of course, if you don't have any collaborators, that's also fine, and you can skip that and go ahead and click Save Form Information at the top right for the third and final time. And this will create the structure of the application for you to begin editing in the system. So once you're at this application details menu, you know you're in the right place to begin. You can see that you're creating a Farm to School Vision Grant application. And under here, where this gray bar says component, all of these listings are individual forms of the application. And so each one will need to be edited and saved and completed individually. And I say that on purpose because the editing and saving process is not the same as completing. You can actually log in and log out as many times as you like to edit your application forms in any order that you like and save your work, even if you're just entering one piece of information. But then I'll show you an example, applicant information. I'm going to click on the first form. So you can see I've got all these boxes to complete. I might be entering a piece of information and saving it here at the top right. It will allow you to save even if you haven't completed the whole form. Once you do that, you can see that it's taken your answer and given you this view only mode of the application. So it might look a little scary at first because you can't continue editing, but to reopen that edit mode, you just go back and click this green edit form button on the right, and that will take you back to the place where you can continue editing. And say you have fully completed this first page, there's a project partners table at the bottom where you can also save it individually. Save grid and save form do essentially do the same thing, so you don't need to worry about that. But once you have entered all the information to your satisfaction, you will save the form one last time, and then you can leave it this way until you're ready to submit. But before you do that, you'll have to click this orange button that says Mark is complete, and that will tell the system that you're done editing this particular application form and you're ready to move on. I clicked it and it's alerting me that I haven't completed the form, so I need to go back and make sure that all of the fields are filled out before I can move forward. Something to note as a navigational tool is when we were in that application details or application components menu before, there was the list of forms that we saw. The list of forms also appears here in the middle, and they have these individual blue hyperlinks, even though they're abbreviated. So if I've completed the application information form, rather than go back to the menu and open a new form, I can simply just click the name of the next form here, which is called Demonstration of Need. And that will take me to the next or any other form in any order that you'd like to complete. And same process for editing, saving, and marking as complete each individual form. And once you've done that, you can click the back button here. It's usually easier to click the back button in the Web Grant system page rather than your browser. However, just a note of caution, sometimes when you click back, it doesn't take you to the page you were just editing. So just be aware that there are a couple system glitches and that you may have to reroute yourself to what you were doing on occasion. So if I'm finished editing, I can go back to app list, which is the first choice on this blue collection of links here, and that will take me back to the application form list where we were previously. General information is a system generated form that is created when you just did your 3-step wizard, so you don't need to redo that. It's already completed. But once you've completed all of your other forms, you'll have green check marks by each one. Once you have a full menu of green check marks, then this red notification will change to green and will say application is in compliance and you may now submit. And then an orange submit button will appear right here on the top bar next to preview application, and then you may submit. So we recommend reviewing everything, of course, to double check that you are fully satisfied before you click submit, because once you do, then it sends over to our side and that's the end of it. If you did something in error or you forgot to include a special attachment, we can make an exception if it's before the deadline and send it back to you. But typically once you submit, that's the final step. And then at that point, your application moves from editing to submitted status. And then when the deadline has passed, it will go into the under review status and through the review process from our team. So that's basically the application process in a nutshell. I'm not going to open each individual form, but I did want to point out what Gina mentioned, which is the link to the Farm to School Vision Grant webpage, where all of the nice resources she shared are linked and explained, the request for applications, our contact information. And then here, if you click on application guide at the bottom, this very last link, you will open a separate page, which is just what it says, the Web Grants application guide. And this is in case someone wasn't able to make the discussion today, or you need a refresher, step-by-step process with screenshots of what you should be going through in order to successfully submit your application. If you've used these tools and you're still having trouble, something isn't making sense, or it's not saving properly, or anything else you run into, any technical issues, just reach out to me by phone or email, and I'll do my best to get you pointed in the right direction. So happy to take questions, and I'll hand it back over to you, Gina.
Thank you so much, Diana, for that overview. That was super helpful. And I do see that we have a few questions in the chat. And I also want to invite people to raise their hands or unmute if you have any questions. So the first question in the chat came from Nancy. What would youth leadership look like in a farm to school and early childhood project, or in a farm to early childhood project specifically? It's a great question. So in the application, the specific question you'll be asked to respond to is, what opportunities will youth have to participate in the design, management, or implementation of this project? And how will their involvement guide the project? So I'm going to put that question in the chat. So that would kind of be, I hope that maybe that question will help kind of specify what opportunities might there be for youth leadership, specifically for the design, management, or implementation. I did comb through some applications and saw like examples that were shared of youth will like participate in actually establishing and maintaining gardens, or youth will be a part of specific roles in the process. There's also, I think for early childhood, it is going to look different than for farm to school when you're dealing with middle schoolers and teenagers who might in the instance of one application be on a steering committee for this work. So yeah, it's a good question, and I think it's something that that other folks working in farm to early childhood, you might be able to, cross-pollinate and share ideas as to what that could look like. It's a great open question there. I appreciate that. John says, we are an organic farm building out our educational programs. We are not a nonprofit, but would be partnering with several nonprofits, with one already being in the farm to school program system. Can we apply if we are a for-profit farm that does agritourism? Well, the way that the application criteria is currently written is that it has to be a nonprofit organization or an educational institution that is actually receiving the grant. But your organization, your farm could be a partner on that application. And you could offer a letter of support for their submission. But I think the way that the eligibility criteria is written, unfortunately, I think a for-profit business would not be eligible for this funding opportunity. But appreciate the question and definitely invite your engagement on a project that could be led by or managed by another organization.
Can I
Another
add to
question,
that, Gina?
please, Diana. Yes.
I just wanted to add that we know that there's a lot of different organizational structures out there, and um, how the work looks in your community can be very different depending on where leadership lies and where fiscal agency lies. And so we know that some folks will be maybe the primary leader of a project or one of the leaders, but another entity needs to be involved to bear the fiscal responsibility, if you're a very small agency or a family run organization. And so we definitely like to look at the whole picture, and technically, if you fall in that category of using another organization as your fiscal agent, or for the purposes of this grant, the fiscal agent does need to be the person who the application falls under in web grants. So if you're a farm or a nonprofit who uses a larger organization for your financial management, then use that headlining fiscal organization as the owner of the application, and then multiple people can collaborate under that organization, even if they don't work for them, in web grants on the application. So it may shake out a little bit differently depending on how your particular situation looks, but just wanted to point that out.
Appreciate that, Diana. Glad to hear that was helpful, John. The other question that's in the chat is 10% admin allowed in the grant budget? It's not allowed. So yeah, I think admin would probably fit under, there is an other category in the budget table where you could put administrative costs. If it's like, indirect, an indirect that's being charged, there's nothing that says indirect's not allowed. There's also a personnel line item. So if you know that it's going to take X number of hours to manage this project, specify that there in the description of personnel costs. Thanks for that question, Rebecca. That's really helpful, especially as the award range is up to 50,000. Could require some administrative costs. And Jason, I see you're unmuted. I don't know if you have a question or.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I just forgot to mute.
Okay. Great. Any other questions from the group? Okay. I'm not hearing any, but Diane and I are available, and I'm gonna put our contact information into the chat in case it's not already at your fingertips. So feel free to reach out to Diana or I if you have any questions. And I'm also gonna drop the link to the grant webpage in the chat where you can, that was showing up or on the screen already today. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. Happy Thursday. Reach out if you have any questions about this grant.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks all.